Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Ethereum, and we're going to be looking at supply count statistics. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and check out Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. Let's go ahead and jump in. So, occasionally, we like to put on our on-chain analysis hat, and we understand fully that on-chain analysis can be somewhat dubious at best, like every other type of analysis, to be completely honest. We also do know that on-chain analysis could be manipulated, or on-chain metrics could be manipulated. With that said, we will go through the supply count statistics for Ethereum, meaning we're going to be looking at addresses, the trends in addresses holding certain amounts of Ether as a function of time. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. And we're just going to step through systematically. So to begin with, we're going to look at addresses holding at least 0.00 or less than 0.001 ETH. Obviously, no one's getting out of bed for less than 0.001 ETH, but you can see that it is actually kind of going parabolic over here. Not that that really means anything. The whole supply of ETH in addresses that have less than 0.001, if you sum it all up, is actually over 10,000 ETH, which is a decent amount, right? I mean, if that was all in one address, that would be a very significant amount, but it is spread out across a lot of different wallets. From here, if you look at addresses that hold between, say, 0.001 to 0.01 ETH, it tells a somewhat interesting story. You can see it going up really up until this sort of final local top we had in early 2021, and then it went down. But then it actually continued to go up into the second half of 2021 and even early 2022. It has somewhat leveled off recently, so we're not seeing that same rise that we were seeing a few months ago. But what you're also not seeing is you're not seeing a steep move to the downside like we saw back in mid 2021. So I think this metric is somewhat interesting to watch and to see. If you see it coming down, that tends to be a pretty clear sign that we're in some type of a distribution range, right? Where it's, Ether is getting distributed out to whoever's locally buying it. But again, one of the caveats of that is that once it starts to turn back around, right, like it did right here in July, it's a good thing, right? Once you start to see it going back up. Right now, it's sort of leveled off. 0.01 to 0.1 ETH, we see the same uptrend, the same strong uptrend that we've observed for quite a long period of time. Okay, so nothing has really changed. There is a significant amount of supply held in wallets holding between 0.01 and 0.1 ETH. To be exact, it's approximately 539,000 ETH in wallets of that size, which is a decent amount. Here's an interesting one, right? 0.1 to 1 ETH. This one, we recently saw a fairly nice, I don't know if you want to call it a sell-off, but we saw it come down significantly. Now, one thing to consider is that it could be wallets consolidating, right, into larger wallets, and so maybe that's why it dropped. It could be wallets expanding out amongst different wallets. But you can see that starting early March, so about a month and a half ago, there was a sharp decline in the amount of ETH held in wallets holding between 0.1 and 1 ETH, and it only started to recently move back up again in early April. Again, this is just what the chart says. I don't control what it says. I just want to communicate with you what it does say. Now, between 1 to 10 ETH, you can see that ETH supply held by addresses with 1 to 10 ETH has been steadily going up. It's currently at around 3.4 million, which is all the way up from about 2.9 million back at the local top in May of 2021. But really, it sort of leveled off a little bit after the local top in early 2021. And then since then, we kind of go through phases where we go up and then sideways, up and then sideways. Clear, just, constant accumulation in these addresses. You compare that to what we've seen previously, and you saw it sort of go up rapidly during the last bull market back in 2016, 2017, and then it really leveled off during you can see it really started to level off as we went further into the bear market, and then it really leveled off in the accumulation phase. Right now, we are sort of continuing to start our slow ascent. Looking at wallets between, say, 10 to 100 ETH, again, this is when you start getting into wallet sizes or addresses that it is going to be relatively reflected by the price of Ether. So it's just going to become harder and harder for people to get their hands on 100 Ether as the price of Ether trends up with time. And you can see, though, that even with that, there was a very strong uptrend even during the bear market in the accumulation phase. It continued moving higher. And then finally, we hit a distribution phase as we got into late 2020 and early 2021. So obviously, some people started probably to sell off a little bit too early, probably where they really wanted to sell off here. And then since then, we've started to slowly go back up, but nothing really that crazy. Okay, nothing. It's more flat than anything recently. Nothing either to the upside or really to the downside. Wallets or addresses holding ETH that is supply held between say 100 to 1,000 ETH. It's just been flat. Okay, I mean it's just been flat since the distribution phase that we had in late 2020 and early 2021. It's been a relatively flat here. We're currently sitting at 9.99 million ETH in wallets that are holding between 100 to 1,000 ETH. So not a whole lot interesting going on here. Like we were seeing early on. At least it's not the same type of distribution phase that we saw over here. It's just more or less holding somewhat steady. Now between 1,000 to 10,000 ETH, again, you see that same distribution pattern play out. And this is something that's interesting because you see a similar type of move when the price was going down as when the price was going up. So I think over here it was people sort of losing confidence. And here it was the people that accumulated back over here that were taking profits. So I think the thing to look for on this metric is if it's going down, if this metric is going down, it either means that Ethereum is in potentially a crypto winter, or it's in a distribution phase. We're not seeing any type of price or any type of action on the chart that looks like that right now. It's just a relatively flat metric. I do think this was something we should watch though to see if it starts going down, because if it does start going down, that could be a red flag that you're having a lot of the larger wallets just sell off their ether. Continuing on, if you look at 10,000 to 100,000 ETH, again, it's one of those things where you kind of see it flip back and forth. The smaller wallets were distributing, but then you had a lot of big players come in and accumulate during this time. And then since then, it's just stayed relatively flat. Currently, it's sitting at 29.15 million ETH in wallets or in addresses holding between 10,000 to 100,000 ETH. And then looking at 100,000 to 1 million ETH, you can see it's just been in a macro downtrend really since November of 2019, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, back then the price was only like $100, right? I mean, to get 100,000 Ether or a million Ether today takes significantly more capital than it took back then. I don't really anticipate seeing this metric go into a strong uptrend just because of how much capital it takes to acquire that. I mean, again, some people are going to be able to accumulate that, but is it going to be a very substantial amount in the short term? Probably not, but maybe over the long term we could see it go back up. But I'm not expecting anything that looks like this unless there is a big sell-off. If there's a big sell-off, I imagine some big players would come in and scoop up ETH and hold it in some really, really large addresses. And then finally, if you look at 1 million ETH, you can see that one is actually just in a strong uptrend, but this is going to be represented by exchanges and whatnot for the most part, I think. And you can see that wallets that are addresses holding at least 1 million ETH currently sits at 26 million ETH in total being held in addresses with at least 1 million ETH. Interesting story to be told by looking at some of the on-chain data. Hopefully you do find it useful. If you do, make sure you check out intothecryptoverse.com. You can get access to this chart along with a lot of other on-chain charts and a lot of other assets you can look at. Okay, you can sort it all sorts of different ways. Make sure you check it out intothecryptoverse.com. Thank you for tuning in, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.